Welcome to Founders Unplugged, hosted by Greg Mccallum. Long-form, honest conversations with founders and entrepreneurs from around the world.
Hello, everyone. So I am Gabriel. I am apparently the first person to come back and talk to this podcast for a second time. You just can't get enough of me. That's great. So for a bit of background, in case you haven't heard my last episode, the last one was released kind of summer of 2023. And at the time, I was working on software for my marketplace. And my marketplace is this company that you can see behind me, essentially Airbnb for creative spaces. So I have a background in the creative industries and technology, degrees in filmmaking, computer programming. Combined those, decided to build technology for the creative industries, initially built Airbnb for creative spaces. Tried building that for a few years. It's still going today, is doing amazingly well considering almost no one works on it. But at the end of last year, we were talking to customers and we were like, why don't you use Tooty more? Like, what in the high-end film and TV space, which is where we wanted to go, why don't you use Tooty? And they said, well, essentially, it's not how we find locations. We don't go into an online marketplace, look at the 5-star rating for a film shoot and production that's going to spend tens of thousands of pounds on a location and just blindly trust the website. We have an entire team hire process around finding the right locations. And right now, every single location scout and location manager throughout their careers, they build a massive black book of every single location they ever find, so that if once they've vetted them, they know they're good for potential future productions. They will then go back, when they get a brief, they'll go back through their database and be like, I found this one that fits. And they have all that knowledge already stored within their IP. And the people told me they go through their own database, then they ask colleagues for their databases, then they'll go online to like a location agency, which is like more service-based version of what Tooty was. And then they might look on Google reverse image search or something like Tooty. And I said, okay, so these databases must be super important, super well organized, like really incredible technologies. And they're like, no, they're mostly built on Dropbox, Google Drive, and maybe SmugMug, which is a photography portfolio site. I was like, that doesn't seem right. So I dug into this. I had these lessons from some location managers at a film and TV conference in December of 2023. I spoke to about 20, 30 people at that conference, and they all agreed their own black book and database is super important. The tech behind it is shit. And I was like, okay, maybe it's just this conference. So I then went out and asked people around the world, and they consistently said the same thing. So I was like, okay, there's a real problem here. There's a very interesting problem here, because it's helping people store and manage their data rather than help people find places to book. And finding places to booking is really hard. And I pitched a bunch of people who I'd spoken to. We have the technology already. We built it for Tooty, for our marketplace. What if we reposition it, rework it, and we sell it to you as software? You pay for the subscription and you upload your own data and you have our interface. And they were like, that sounds cool. But then they said, well, actually, I don't want to spend all the time going through and organizing all of it and like tagging everything. That's how I find things. And I was like, AI. AI has just come out. In November 2023, GPT or OpenAI had launched GPT Vision, which was able to look at pictures and tag it. And I was like, we can use that in theory. I pitched that idea and they were like, if that works, like reliably, because other people have pitched AI tools to location scouts in the past that have been horrible, then you were going that would be incredible. And so I was like, okay, great, let's try this. And in the first 5 weeks of 2024, we took the technology from Tooty that we already had, reworked it slightly, and then plugged in OpenAI's vision to text model. It was a really crap prototype, but it worked. and we put in photos, and people saw these 100 keywords come out, and they were like, wow. And that was enough to showcase at the Berlin Film Festival and really get people excited about what we were building. And since then, we have been building what we now call Super Scout, which is same initial underlying technology as Tooty, but repurposed in a very different way. And it's massively expanded in scope and opportunity through this year. But this year, while from my perspective, I've both been looking at what massive opportunity and amazing places it could go. My brain's been doing left-right thing all year. I've been both looking at this massive opportunity while also trying to build just the simple first version with my team for a very small subset of users. So we have 25 paying users around the world across 6 countries, paying anywhere from £10 to £60 a month. Some people paying annually, some monthly. And they have all been helping guide our product development and telling us what they like, what they don't, and giving us real-time, real feedback. And we've been building very carefully with these people around the world. And we are building towards something that is going to be super useful to location scouts to start with. So the location scout, I should define, it's the people in the film and TV industry who go and find the amazing places you see on screen. And there's a bunch of different people who do that job. Some are called location scouts, but then the active location scouting is done by location managers, producers, sometimes directors, sometimes production designers, location agencies, and film commissions. So all of those people are potential users. And now we are at a point that our software is being used by some incredible people. Just this morning, I was talking to one of our customers who is a team at the BBC who is using it for a production, one of the longest running productions in the BBC. And we're just getting started. We haven't launched yet. We're in a private beta right now. And people are coming to us and being like, we want this. So it's a very exciting time. And I guess the final thing is the opportunity of this technology. Yes, we're starting in the film and TV industry. That's my background. But the technology, we're now calling an AI CRM for geospatial data. And it's a CRM in that it quite literally tracks all of your data about the relationships that, like a scout can track all of the data about the relationships with the owners of places that they're looking at, comments about that, their interactions in the future, all sorts of things around there, CRM. And geospatial data is a vague enough term that we chose to mean that you can track fields in the middle of nowhere, as well as properties, as well as like some people
rooms
like
and
whatever,
like,
rooms, post boxes on the side of the road,
right?
Whatever you want. And that concept of an AI CRM for geospatial data, yes, it's useful to the film and TV industry, but we've had people in the property industry say, "Hey, can you bring that to real estate?" And then we've had people in construction say, "Can you bring that to construction? There's like 2 use cases that would be amazing for." We've had yesterday someone pitched me government infrastructure, defense, and energy infrastructure as well. So like, there's a lot of opportunity for this. It's just we're starting here.
Yeah, one thing at a time, right? Yeah, and it's an incredible. Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily want to call it pivot. Would you call it a pivot?
Yeah.
Would you? Okay. I'm not because it's a bad word or anything, but I don't think it is at all.
An evolution.
An evolution, yeah. I think that feels because it's not as if you did it intentionally. You weren't seeking it out, right? It kind of seeked you out in a way.
Half and half.
Was it?
We knew that the business model of Tooty was not the way for us to go ahead.
It wasn't ringing people's bells for whatever reason. So
no,
you dug deeper. And, I
mean, I can explain the math behind it. Like, to get into super high end bookings, there are some other companies who started with venues and then expanded to equipment rental, people rental, which is great. That's not how the high-end film and TV industry works. So those are very different departments. In the video and corporate world, That's very much how the industry works. And there are a couple competitors to Tooty that have done really well getting into that world. And there you unlock like some larger bookings. We were trying to push into high-end film and TV, and it was just not working. And then the average booking size on Tooty is anywhere between £20 and £500, and we take 10% commission, and half of that goes to a payment provider. So, or less, just under half of that. So, very small margins, and they're non-repeat. Like, people will use us once, and if they like the venue, go direct to the venue. If they don't like the venue, then they might use us again, but it's completely unpredictable. Whereas Super Scout is pure SaaS. People pay us for access to the software. It scales based on how much data they're using. We don't do it by user because basically if you have more users, you're more likely to putting in more data. And we didn't want people to worry about, oh no, we're not paying for users. So
plus it's a database and AI solution, so it's got to scale with API calls and storage, right?
Yeah. And that's exactly, we have a credit system for API AI calls, and we have a subscription for storage. And our margins are, SaaS margins.
But I guess none of this would have been possible without having, put Tooty together in the first place, right? I saw a post you made this morning talking about why you have them both in your background. And it's important because of one wouldn't be there without the other. So it's an important journey.
Oh yeah, very important. Learned so much along the way. Still making mistakes today, but a lot less than I did
right
a few years ago.
Yeah. But it's just really interesting because it would have been so easy to just be kind of willfully ignorant to some of the stuff that you could have learned, right? And just continued on like, no, we're going to make this work. We're going to make this work. Like I'm sure you've seen plenty of others do, despite all of the evidence telling them sort of contrary. And
that's how companies die.
Yeah. Exactly. And it would have been very easy to kind of fall victim to that yourself and then just be like, no.
Hi, a friendly reminder to share this episode with your network, like and subscribe. And if you are feeling really supportive, please consider reviewing the show on the podcast platform of your choice. It all really helps support what we do. Thank you. Now back to the show.
The industry's got to change, not me, and be banging your head against a brick wall. So yeah, hats off to you for discovering the deeper sort of new problem underneath it all, and then evolving to suit it. And the team's grown, and you're raising funds, and like you said, you're still in beta. Tell me a bit more about that. What's been going on there?
I guess I should have added a fairly major point of our team evolution in that story, but
recent development as well, isn't it?
Recent development. So we had it has been a stressful year. When we started this year, we came up with this pivot basically in December to January. We had, I think, less than 10 grand in the bank. Because we raised in 22 and it was supposed to last us 6 months. We managed to make it last 14 months. Actually 15, which is impressive by itself. And then we discovered this pivot and we were like, oh, we need to do this. And this is a real big opportunity. And so we tried raising for it, but because we kind of not achieved much in the previous year other than growing Tooty, we struggled at fundraising. And we managed to raise enough to exist for a couple months and build the prototype and go to Berlin Film Festival. And off the back of Berlin Film Festival, more people invested. And we've been kind of going hand to mouth this year, which is not a nice place to be in as a founder, particularly a solo founder. It's kind of really brutal on the mental health. Luckily, I have a wife who's very supportive, but would have been tough without her. And we raised and we spent and we raised and we spent. And finally, in the summer, we managed to get past that and give ourselves a couple months runway. We raised and we won a grant. And then by chance, I reconnected with someone who I had been my boss's boss 15 years ago. And he was, his name's Alan, and he was the co-founder of IMDb. He also co-founded Digital Spy and SportsMall. So he's a 3 times exited founder, and he's been on this journey more than once. And he had just exited SportsMall like 2 weeks before I emailed him out of the blue. And he said, yeah, I'm up for coffee. We scheduled half an hour for coffee. We spoke for 4 hours. And I was like, okay, there's something interesting here. He's genuinely interested. He didn't tell me to F off. And then we kept meeting for coffee. And he kept saying, oh, I would be interested in being involved. I was looking at him potentially as an investor. And he's like, I don't invest in things without like really putting my time in and getting involved. And I was like, how involved do you actually want to be? And eventually I coaxed out of him that he wants to be full-time. He's looking for a new challenge, full-time chief commercial officer, and to take something that really is scalable and explode it out of the water. And that was amazing. And so he is coming on board. He's our lead investor for this round. He put his money in. He's currently on holiday because he did just exit a company. And I was like, go take your holiday. But come January, he's back and he's working full-time for us. And yeah, it's pretty cool to be able to say that I am being joined by the co-founder of IMDb and 3 times exited founder on this journey. And he is super passionate about what we're building. When he was asked by an advisor of mine, why do you want to join this team? He said, I have 2 passions in life, film and tech. And this covers both of them. So
good answer. Yeah. And that's an amazing addition. I mean, and just the skill set that brings, yeah, regardless of the sort of brownie points that it gets you as well, like working together. But yeah, that's going to be a hell of a whirlwind of a learning experience too, right? To get to sit with someone like that on a daily basis and pick their brains and see how they do things and get things done. Like that's exciting, man.
That's really exciting. Yeah, very fun.
Yeah. But if you think this year was tough, that one, this is when it all starts to get going, right?
This is when it's going to be interesting. Yeah. This year has been the prototype building year. And we've built a prototype that is, I would say, 80% there of what people need from a very core infrastructure, where they have an existing system, which people have various feelings about. Most of it frustration, because it's not built for the sector. But it's made by Dropbox and Google Drive, so it's really good. It's just not built for the sector. So in order for us to convince people to come over, we had to build something as good as those. And it's not easy. Like, those technologies are bloody good. So we had to build a technology that did everything that they did and some more as our MVP. I don't like MVP because it's taken us ages, but it's our prototype. And we're finally like 90% of the way to that point. There's one big feature that we kind of missed that was flagged up today, this morning. But we'll build that in December. And then from there, we have the foundations on which to build everything that blows us out of the water beyond those existing solutions. Just things that people are like, I didn't know that this would be possible in my work software.
Well, because I remember when we first spoke, we spent quite a bit of time talking about how, and we agreed on this, and it was a really interesting topic about the idea that you have a kind of philosophy, and I don't want to put words into your mouth or misremember exactly what you said, but something along the lines of you have a philosophy of building software that kind of does the unexpected in a pleasant way, somewhat gamification essentially, but also just ways of it operating or responding to the user in a pleasantly surprising way. I think those were pretty much the words you used. So I'm assuming that you want to take much of that and kind of, because that's very much, Tooty had elements of that in, and you spent a lot of time on that. So I'm assuming you want to take that similar philosophy and port it across to.
The best example of that is our AI today. I call it invisible AI, which is, in my opinion, the best. You don't have to prompt it. You don't have to tell it to do anything. It just does it.
Just get it
and
done.
then it's useful to you.
Yeah.
And what it does today is when someone is uploading locations, however they're uploading locations, there's multiple ways to ingest data right now, and those will grow. Every single photo that's uploaded is automatically run through our AI system in the background. And so 5 minutes, 10 minutes after you've uploaded it, you can search church, and every church you've uploaded shows up in seconds. And no one's ever tagged that, like, mentally. They've never gone through and been like, that's a church. Our system just knows it's a church. And I had a lot of people in the early days say, how do I trigger the AI? Like, how does it know to do the thing that you told me it does? I'm like, oh, it just does it in the background. Look at that photo. Look at the metadata. And they're like, okay, cool. So that's a very good example. It's just like, it's
a pleasant surprise.
Yeah, pleasant surprise.
Yeah.
Going above and beyond their expectations.
Yeah. That's awesome. And to change lane a little bit, obviously since we last spoke, you also got married. So congratulations, which I've obviously seen you before that, so I've said congratulations, but like in terms of, just for the benefit of the podcast, congratulations. Yeah, that's awesome. And like you said, she's put up with you as a founder.
Yeah.
Because my wife puts up with me too, being a founder, as they do.
We've been together 8 years, and I've been trying to start a company 7 years.
Right.
So she's been here for the entire journey. We have very exciting times ahead, and I'm going to need some money fairly soon. And I'm like, hey, I could go and get a real job if you want, if you need like some security. And she's like, no, you are so close. You are going to do this. I believe in you. Do not go and get a real job. You will be miserable. You've got this. And I hear that like weekly, even though with the highs and lows of startup life, I don't feel like I got this weekly.
Yeah. That's so important.
Some low points. Just like, why am I doing this? And then she's like, you've got this. You 100% have this. And then in the last 48 hours, I'm like, yes, I 100% have this. And then probably next week, I'll be like,
It can sometimes be hour by hour, right? Like it's brutal. But no, that's amazing. And, like I totally see why you've married one another. That's incredible. And quite often the topic of, especially since we last spoke, in a lot of conversations I've had on this show, the topic comes up a lot about having supportive people around you when you're starting your own business or whatever. And not everyone has that, and that's incredibly tough. And even when you have it, it's still hard. Like, it's not like they're sat next to you all day, every day, going, like, you can do it, you can do it. Like, I wonder if that would be helpful or just annoying. No. I don't know. But
no, sometimes my desk is in the living room, and as helpful as she is.
Sorry to interrupt. I've got a quick message. Please don't skip. It's an important one. So look, if you've listened to this show for a little while now, you'll know that quite often the subject of mental health and psychology comes up, especially in the context of being a founder. What's interesting is more than 70% say that they're affected, and less than half get any kind of professional help. Well, I'm really happy to say that there is a real psychologist who is actually a startup veteran and developed a unique approach tailored for us founders. Yariv Gaynor has been working in startups since 2005. He was a CMO, and then he pivoted to clinical and industrial psychology. He's been working with founders worldwide to help them with issues such as imposter syndrome, anxiety, burnout, and more, as well as co-founder and founder-investor crises that are very common in startups. Whether it's in a private one-to-one session or joint co-founders process, Yariv provides efficient support that's based on psychological tools and knowledge. Please do check out the link in the description to see what he's all about, get in touch with him, have a chat. If you're someone that feels like maybe you could do with this sort of support. If you're watching this, there'll be a QR code on the screen. Just scan that and it will take you to his website. That's it. Thank you, Yariv Gaynor, for sponsoring this episode. Let's get back to the conversation.
Sometimes I have like deep focus modes because I have a level of ADD. And the best way of focusing is just kind of, I'm going to hammer it out for the next 4 hours. And because we share a living room, she'll just randomly like think of something and start speaking. And I'm like, no, I'm in a focus mode. And so if someone was next to me saying, you got this, you got this. You got this. Be like, leave now.
Yeah. Maybe if you could do it, if you could decide when to do it, maybe get her to record it and then put it on like a little loop station type thing or something. And then whenever you need a little bump, you know what I mean? You just like, get your fix,
Well,
just play it.
she's nice enough, and she has a equally ridiculous schedule that most often when we need to chat, we just hop on a call together, and she's like, you got this.
She's a classical musician, right? So constantly touring and things like that. Yeah, amazing. Well, you were off with her somewhere recently, weren't you? Again, when she was on.
I travel a lot. I travel a fair amount with her because our team's entirely remote, so I can be anywhere. But I posted a photo of myself in a bathrobe in Italy in the summer because she had a concert series planned in Stresa in Italy, and the organizers were putting us up for 3 nights in a hotel as a thank you for being there and playing concerts, and then forgot to organize one of the concerts. So we got a free day in a hotel, which was very nice.
Just forgot.
Yeah, forgot. And it had it was a nice summer holiday.
Very nice. But no, that's really amazing. And and again, congratulations on the wedding. And I hear it was a fantastic wedding as well. And I remember actually in the lead up to that, all that you were doing to put that together, it was quite astounding.
Yes. Yeah. If I wasn't in startups, if I didn't love being a tech startup founder, I would probably be a large event planner. Right. Because I planned my entire wedding myself. Amron's, my wife, helped a bit. But if we ask balance of duties, she'll agree it was more me. And we had 100 people for 6 days. Everyone stayed 80 people stayed on site. And we catered 12 meals across 6 days with everyone in banquet style seating in one room. And basically, hired a friend's estate. Well, I say a friend. Hired a family friend's estate in Cornwall. And it was magical and also hilarious because we did everything locally. We did everything in Cornwall. And so the prices were so cheap compared to London. The price for us to hire 2 chefs, a set of kitchen staff, all food for 12 meals for 100 people was cheaper than a lot of people pay for 1 meal in London.
That's nuts.
That's crazy.
Did you not get the wedding tax? Because everything, as soon as people, they'll give you one quote for an event, but then as soon as you say you're getting married, they're like, oh yeah, it's 10 times that. You weren't getting any of that.
And no, we were fine. Everything seemed pretty reasonable.
But I mean, one hell of a thing to organize, man. A 6-day wedding celebration. That's crazy.
It's very fun.
But the thing is, I say that, but then I've had friends, as part of the Indian community. And I knew a guy particularly who was a photographer, who was a wedding photographer for Indian weddings, basically. And they go on for a really long time too, a week, 2 weeks sometimes. And he was telling me all about that, the complexity of the organizing of that. And obviously wedding planners are really big there. They do a large part of the heavy lifting, and that's sometimes hundreds of people.
Oh yeah, I mean, for an Indian wedding, you have to invite all of your family. You are expected to invite your entire family. So often and
quite often large families,
of people. Right?
Yeah.
And I've been to 2 Indian weddings. One was 300 people. One was 600. They were both a couple days long. But the people going to them were all very busy people, so they couldn't do the whole week. But it was, they were fun.
Yeah. It's like a mini holiday at that point, right?
Yeah.
That's great. So what was your inspiration behind wanting to do 6 days? Why did you want to do a long?
Well, one the venue that we hired was the place that my wife and I met, got engaged, and got married at.
Oh, wow.
And they only do 6-day bookings because they're normally a holiday retreat rental place.
Right.
So that was one thing, and then 2. I went to university in the States, and I have friends all around the world. So we invited people from Seattle, LA, Vancouver, Toronto, New York, Boston.
Right. They're not going to come for the
Washington. And then Amron's, my wife, invited her cousin from New Zealand. and we had people from, I think, 7 time zones like descend upon Cornwall. And if you're flying, the people who came from LA flew like 9 hours, landed in Heathrow, got a half-hour train to Paddington, took a 6-hour train from Paddington to Cornwall, then a half-hour car to the venue. So after 17 hours of travel, 16, 17 hours of travel, you don't want to be there for 24 hours.
Yeah. You're going to make the most of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's really awesome. Yeah, we did something similar for my sister and brother-in-law's wedding. They did a resort out in Mexico, and that was like a week long thing. And then again, because if they, similar for them, they met on a cruise ship, and so all of their friends are from that industry, and they're people from all around the world. So similar thing. If they're gonna do it where everyone can come, enjoy their time, and basically make a holiday out of it. And so, yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah,
but that's incredible. Did you have to choose all the food and stuff like that as well? Did you get?
We picked all of the meals ahead of like 6 months in advance. We picked all of the wines and everything to match those meals 6 months in advance. What else did we do? All sorts of things. And then we had scheduled activities every single day as well. The first activity was the Friday. So everyone arrived on Thursday, or a lot of people on Thursday. And Friday, we invented, I'm sure we're not the first people to do this, but we created out of thin air a scavenger hunt, which was for 2 things. One was for places around the estate so that people could actually learn where they were. And 2 was for people. And it was like, go and find the person who dragged Gabriel to the gym in university. And obviously, like 70 people there were my age. So it was impossible to find that out without going up and asking everyone. And it meant that people met each other. And some people were super competitive and would team up with people who knew me from different parts of my life. So
that's cool. That's a great idea.
That was the first day. So
that's a business idea in itself. Like, to use that in networking events, dude. Like, that's an app. Like, right there.
I mean, it was used in. I went to a networking event yesterday, arranged by a friend of mine called Carl Tischler, and he has a company called HPNA, which is High Performing Non-Assholes, and he organizes events. He basically helps really nice people take control of their career,
right?
And he organizes an event yearly for his nice friends. And he had a similar thing. He was like, go and find someone who likes to showcase his cat on every Zoom call. Go and find someone who go and find someone who's randomly related to Carl, which was me. And like all sorts of different little things. And it was fun.
That's a great idea. Really great idea. It makes networking so much more fun.
Yeah,
because it can be a bit monotonous at times, and especially for introverted people too. Like it isn't easy. Like I would oddly consider myself to be fairly introverted actually, and it's only really in the last I don't know 6 or 7 years I'd say that I've got more confident in approaching people, because before that, I'll be honest, I was relying mostly on alcohol to do the heavy lifting for me in that situation. And it's only in quitting alcohol and not relying on that for the networking side of things that I've got a lot better and more confident at doing it now.
Very much the same for me. In university, I wasn't introverted. I kind of introverted extrovert. But I always relied on alcohol to kind of be that liquid courage. And then, and now I drink, I think, once every 3 weeks. And now it's just, I go up to people and I have the confidence, which is everything. And these challenges are very hard for people who are introverted but competitive.
If you are enjoying this episode and want to support the show, please like, subscribe with notifications turned on, and let us know your thoughts and opinions in the comments below. This lets YouTube know we are doing something right. Back to the show.
Like, I want to win, but I have to go and talk to people.
It's a conflict of interest there internally, But it's a great idea. But yeah, man, that's it. Well, yeah, congratulations again. It's just awesome, and I'm so happy for you guys. And it sounds like a beautiful, beautiful wedding. And yeah, really hats off to you and also for doing that all at the same time, is because at the time you were still, trying to really push Tooty and I think you were actually raising at the time as well. And there was a lot going on, wasn't there?
I made a terrible mistake of raising money in 22, and then a company came along and said, "We love your software. We would love to pay you. We would love to invest 100K if you build a custom version of the software for us." And I was like, "Oh, right. I can do that. That's easy. And 100K is really nice because that will give us 10 months runway." Don't do that. Founders, if you ever hear that, don't do that. Custom builds for specific companies will be the death of you. We went down that rabbit hole. I realized I was trying to split the team across two different things, and the 100K was 100% not worth it. We would need money to give us runway plus hire a whole second extra team to do this. And I then, off the back of that, said, "Oh, we're starting a fundraise because we've got someone who wants to put in 100K." And so I've basically been non-stop fundraising since March 2023, which is just really stupid because we had a lot of money in the bank. Mm. And if we'd not been doing that, then we could have been out, I don't know, inventing Super Scout sooner, potentially, or other things. Right. And yeah, that was very stupid. And then June 10th was my wedding. And in the run up to that, I was also speaking at a conference at the end of May and fundraising. The conference was in Silicon Valley. So I was planning wedding, raising money, and speaking conference in West Coast. And I quite literally had a burnout on the West Coast. Luckily, an investor friend of mine gave me a place to stay and helped nurse me back to health, basically. But that was not fun. Don't do that.
So it was like a physical reaction as a burnout, you mean? Like where you physically became unwell?
Physically became unwell and just wasn't able to think or do anything. Or I just had to spend 2 days in this investor's house and talk about something that wasn't my work or the wedding or something. Yeah.
It's interesting because, and I'm sorry to hear that. I didn't mean to say it's interesting as if you're a scientific specimen to study. Like it's obviously, I'm sorry to hear that, but glad to hear that you managed to get through it and you had people around you and stuff. But it is interesting from the perspective of, I hear a lot of people talk about burnout and I don't think many people really know what that means. It's kind of thrown around. Like there are some people that I have the suspicion that they believe a burnout just means they feel a bit tired.
Right? I mean, there's a scale.
I know, but just feeling a bit knackered isn't the same as burnout. It means you're working and you feel tired. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I get a feeling like reality might need to sort of come and give them a knock on the door sometimes, I
feel like burnout is like many things my wife had a brief stint studying psychology and she was just like, God, psychological terms of affliction have no kind of scale. Like some of them have the same term, but one are super, you can't survive without support. And then people with the same kind of term are just fine. And there's this massive spread of issues that people haven't labeled correctly because there's so much affecting it. It's the same with burnout because I describe myself as having micro burnouts every now and then. And I know the signs now because I'm self-aware enough to have spent time looking at myself and trusting how my body feels and seeing what's happening. And if I feel myself getting close to what I call a micro burnout, I will go and put myself on the couch or in bed and just watch TV or something. I try and time it so it happens on a weekend. But occasionally, especially in the past, when kind of things were kind of a bit more stable, now with the software, I have to be kind of on call right now. If it happened on Wednesday, I would hop in a bed and watch 6 hours of TV on a Wednesday and be totally fine because I was kind of letting my body relax. And then the next day I'd be back on track. But there is a level of that. You have to be, it is so hard as a founder. You always feel like any time not working is wasted time. And you want to push yourself and push yourself and push yourself. And even to this day, even though I'm preaching this, like, I struggle with this. If people need to get better at understanding that relaxing is part of the journey to stay in top shape form.
100%. Yeah.
And you, unless you are like a superhuman or have absolutely no conscience, or self-awareness, then most people cannot just keep going endlessly with minimal sleep and everything. So the things that I prioritize to try and like make sure that I don't burn out are, I aim for 8 hours of sleep every night. I eat 3 good meals every day. Well, good. I eat 3 meals that involve mixed
some level of food,
some level of decent food. I know I should exercise more. I'm quite bad at that, but I'm working on it. And then if I do feel exhaustion and I'm looking at a screen, I'm just like, I can't focus on anything. I'm not doing anything. Like yesterday, actually, I just put myself in bed for half an hour and I'm like, this is getting me nowhere. Let's go and have a snooze. If it's slightly stronger than that, then I'll say, okay, for a few hours, I'm just watching TV and blaring out. My go-to is Brooklyn Nine-Nine, even though I've seen it like 3 times, but I will go and watch a lot of that.
Yeah.
And yeah, it helps me back on track. And not enough founders take into account the fact that relaxing is an important part of staying on top of their game.
Yeah, 100%.
I've seen a comparison between athletes and founders, and
right.
They need to be at the top of their game. Athletes work relaxation and post-workout wind down into their
routine. Yeah, rest days are an incredibly important part of any athlete's journey. Yeah, absolutely.
Should be in founder journeys too, but we don't think that way.
Yeah, even from a biomechanical perspective, like if you're doing weight training, for example, which I used to do quite heavily, you wouldn't guess it looking at me now, but you know, there's a chemical, there's a biochemical and biomechanical reason for it, why it's so important. Like you get better results. You only get those results essentially with doing that. You know, you got to stress the muscle and then you've got to relax the muscle, and that's how it repairs itself and, you know, gets bigger, gets stronger. So yeah, I mean, it's the same thing, right? And the brain is in some ways a muscle in that regard. I really like what you said, the micro burnout thing. I've not heard that term before, and I might steal that from you, because I experienced. Funnily enough, I woke up this morning and could feel it, and I've kind of got to some point of listening to myself now as well in the same way, where I could feel it's a bit of it's kind of a mixture of both mental cloudiness and physical illness. It's kind of like a mixture of the both, and I'm like, okay, something's on the horizon. It will probably hit me fully at the weekend. So now I'm looking at the weekend and all the things I had planned to do. I'm thinking, right, what can I just remove, prioritize relaxation? And then I'd probably say to my wife, darling, this weekend, I think I need to do a bit of recuperation. And she kind of knows that now. And then she'll just be like, okay, cool, do what you need to do. You know what I mean? And then let me do it, whether that's chilling, watching TV, reading a book, whatever. And I hadn't really realized that I'd been doing it that intentionally, I guess, until you just said it then, that you do with the micro burnout type concept.
I like to make up terms, so have fun. A lot of people steal my terms. Invisible AI. I was talking to an AI expert and they were like, I've never heard that term. I'm like, I just invented it.
yeah. I do that in our own company too. Like I've invented so many things. And then I search it. I'm like, shit, someone already come up with a term for this. Like, am I sounding like an idiot? I'm like, I don't care. It's fine. This is what I'm calling it.
What the best example is the technology that we're building. I thought it was this great. Well, I still think it's this great technology, but I was like, surely this technology kind of exists out there, but I don't know the term. And I think it was 2 weeks ago, I was telling someone what I was building, and he was like, oh, you're building a GIS. I'm like, A GIS? What is a GIS?
Yeah.
And I looked it up and I'm like, oh yeah, we're building a GIS. GIS is Geographic Information System.
Right.
And that realization has actually helped improve our deck, because now I can put a GIS, and there's a whole market of GIS that is growing rapidly. And I'm like, yeah, we're building in this market.
Yeah.
And these are example companies that are absolutely killing it in this market. Like, don't think of us as a media and entertainment company. Think of us as a GIS, and we're a lot more interesting.
It's funny. I'm going through the exact same thing on our end, like with, constantly, just learning along that. But you don't know what you don't know, right? But at the same time, like, there's something to be said for kind of, I mean, all terms are made up anyway. So, but there's something to be said from like to rebranding,
Yes.
a concept or whatever anyway, right? So like, that's kind of what we're doing a little bit of. GIS, is that really sexy? Is that gonna grab people's attention? No, you could rebrand it, repackage it, turn it into something a bit more palatable, but yeah, in a pitch deck or whatever, you might need to use the terminology some people are familiar with, but there's nothing wrong with coming up with your own stuff too. I mean, Apple have been doing it for donkeys.
Oh yeah, AI, artificial intelligence? No, Apple intelligence.
Right, exactly. Yeah, was it like
example?
Spatial computing?
Yes, I know. You
VR.
mean
Yeah, why not? Like, you can do what you want, right? As long as you're explaining it and people.
I should really throw some Apple graphs into our deck, which is literally like you show a line going in the right direction, but you don't give an X or Y axis.
Right. This is what we predict over the next 5 years. What? Like, what are you predicting? No, just this. We just predict this.
This is how much better we are than the last model. What last model?
Yeah. These are all the new features. What you mean? So the same features as last time? It doesn't matter. These are just all the new features. Yeah. And then you actually took away 5. But anyway, man, we've come to the end of part 1, because now that's what we do now. We do it in parts. It's a bit different than before. Remember when we just like ran through the whole thing? For those listening and watching, thank you very much for watching part 1. We're going to be jumping back into part 2 in a couple of days, so make sure you subscribed and all that nonsense. I'm going to delve in to some other things with Gabriel, and you will want to check that out. So that's the end of part 1.
Thank you for listening and or watching. Subscribe with notifications turned on to get notified when part 2 comes out. While you wait, please join in the conversation in the comments below.